Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to crack open Claer Barrett's book, What They Don't Teach You About Money,
Okay.
and explore some practical ways to feel more in control of your finances.
Seems good.
It's a book that's really aimed at everybody, even if you'd normally run for the hills
Right.
at the sight of a finance textbook.
It's true. This book really does break down those barriers
Yeah.
and make personal finance accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
I think what really stands out to me is how Barrett starts by emphasizing the importance of understanding
Yeah.
your own financial personality.
Right. She actually dives into different personality types, like the jitterbug, who stresses over every penny, and the ostrich, who avoids looking at their bank balance altogether.
I know a few ostriches.
Yeah. It's a fun way to think about our natural tendencies with money.
Yeah.
Do you think you recognize any of those personalities in yourself?
Oh, definitely. I think we all have a bit of each personality within us.
Uh-huh.
And recognizing those tendencies can be a real game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Because Barrett argues that it helps us understand why we make certain financial decisions,
Right.
which is the first step to making better choices.
Okay, so let's say you've figured out your money personality. Where do you go from there?
Well, Barrett tackles some common money myths that can really trip us up. For example, she challenges the idea of spending to save.
Okay.
She uses the example of getting caught up in discount shopping, where we end up buying things we don't need just because they're on sale.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah.
That 20% off tag can be irresistible, even if I didn't plan on buying anything in the first place.
Exactly. And Barrett digs into the psychology behind this.
Mhm.
She cites Tim Harford, who argues that we often get so focused on the discount itself that we don't compare the actual price to similar items elsewhere.
So it's not really a bargain if you're spending more than you would otherwise.
Right. And Barrett even calls out those too good to be true deals,
Yeah.
especially during events like Black Friday. She cites research from consumer groups that show that many of these deals are actually inflated prices disguised as discounts.
So how can we avoid falling into this trap?
It all comes back to mindful spending.
Okay.
Barrett encourages us to question whether we genuinely need the item and to always compare prices before making a purchase,
Yeah.
especially when we see those tempting discount signs.
Right.
She also introduces this great concept called the Pret tax.
Pret tax. Tell me more.
It's essentially the high price we pay for convenience.
Okay.
Think about grabbing your daily coffee or lunch on the go.
Yeah.
Those small expenses can add up significantly over time.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about denying ourselves those little pleasures, but understanding the cost and whether it aligns with our overall financial goals.
Precisely. It's about making conscious choices. Instead of a restrictive budget, Barrett recommends creating a spending plan.
Okay.
By tracking your spending, you can identify patterns and see where those convenience purchases are sneaking in.
That's great advice. There are so many budgeting apps out there that can help with that too. Now, I know something that always makes me a little anxious is the topic of debt,
Right.
especially credit card debt. What does Barrett have to say about that?
Well, she doesn't shy away from the dangers of credit cards,
Right.
even referring to them as debt cards to highlight their true nature.
Okay.
She shares a personal anecdote about falling into the store card debt trap,
Mm-hmm.
which I think a lot of people can relate to.
What happened?
She wanted to buy a coffee table and was tempted by a 10% discount if she used the store's credit card.
Right.
But the high interest rate on the card meant that she ended up paying way more than the original price in the long run.
That's a cautionary tale for sure.
It really highlights how easily we can accumulate debt without realizing the long-term cost.
Yeah.
And this is where the concept of compound interest working against you comes into play.
Can you explain that a little more? I think compound interest can be a confusing concept for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Basically, when you have debt, interest is charged not only on the original amount you borrowed, but also on the accumulated interest.
Right.
So this means your debt can snowball over time, especially if you're only making minimum payments.
So what can we do to manage debt effectively?
Well, Barrett suggests a couple of different strategies. One is the avalanche method,
Okay.
where you focus on paying down your highest interest debts first
Right.
to save money on interest charges in the long run.
Makes sense.
She also stresses the importance of seeking professional help from a debt advisor if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Uh-huh.
There's no shame in asking for help.
All right, so let's shift gears and talk about long-term financial goals like home ownership. It feels like a distant dream for many these days.
It does.
What's Barrett's take on that?
Well, she acknowledges that the current economic landscape
Yeah.
makes this goal incredibly challenging. She dives into the impact of quantitative easing,
Right.
or QE,
Right.
which is when central banks pump money into the economy to stimulate growth.
I've heard about QE, but I don't fully understand how it works.
It's complex,
Mm.
but essentially QE has led to historically low interest rates,
Right.
which has made borrowing cheaper
Okay.
and fueled a surge in property prices. Barrett explains that while this may seem like a good thing,
Yeah.
it has created an affordability crisis
Yeah.
for many potential homebuyers.
So what happens if interest rates start to rise again?
That's the concern. As QE is reversed and interest rates go up, there's a risk of a housing market correction,
Right.
which could lead to falling house prices. This could be good news for those struggling to get on the property ladder,
Uh-huh.
but it could also create uncertainty for existing homeowners.
That's a lot to consider. What advice does Barrett give to those dreaming of owning a home?
She talks about the importance of saving for a deposit,
Okay.
even if it seems daunting. She also highlights the role of parental financial support in home ownership,
Right.
acknowledging that for money, saving for a deposit is simply impossible
Yeah.
without help from family.
That's a conversation we need to be having more openly, right? It's
Yeah.
often a taboo subject, but it's the reality for many people.
Absolutely. Barrett also discusses alternative paths to homeownership, like shared ownership schemes,
Okay.
where you buy a portion of a property and pay rent on the remaining share. These schemes can be a good option for those who can't afford to buy outright,
Yeah.
but come with their own set of pros and cons.
So it sounds like homeownership is still possible, but it requires careful planning, research, and maybe a bit of creativity and exploring different options.
Exactly. It's not always a straightforward path, but with the right information and guidance, it can be achievable. Speaking of guidance, Barrett is a big advocate for seeking advice from independent financial advisors,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to big decisions like buying a home. They can help you navigate the complexities
Uh-huh.
and make informed choices that align with your goals and circumstances.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a financial coach in your corner. I'm curious to hear more about her advice on investing for the future. Can we dive into that next?
Absolutely. That's another area where she has a wealth of knowledge to share.
Great. Let's take a quick break and come back to unpack Barrett's insights on investing and building long-term wealth. All right, we're back and ready to dive into the world of investing.
No way.
With Claer Barrett's guidance. It can feel like a daunting topic,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping we can demystify it a bit today.
Investing can definitely seem intimidating,
Yeah.
but Barrett does a great job of breaking it down
Mm-hmm.
and making it feel approachable.
Right.
One of her key messages is this idea of getting richer slowly,
Okay.
which emphasizes patience and consistency over trying to get rich quick schemes.
That sounds much more sustainable and
Yeah.
less risky.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
It involves investing regularly, even if it's with small amounts,
Okay.
and letting your money grow over the long term. She's a big fan of compound interest and how it can work in your favor when you're investing.
I remember you mentioned compound interest earlier when we were talking about debt,
Yes.
and it definitely wasn't our friend then.
Right.
So how does it work differently with investing?
With debt, compound interest adds to what you owe.
Mm-hmm.
But with investing, it adds to your returns.
Okay.
It's like a snowball effect where
Yeah.
your money earns interest and then that interest earns more interest
Yeah.
and so on.
Okay, so the earlier you start investing,
Right.
the more time you have for that snowball to grow.
Exactly. Even if you can only invest a small amount each month,
Mm-hmm.
starting early can make a huge difference in the long run.
That's motivating.
Yeah,
But the stock market can feel like a whole other language.
I know.
Where do you even begin?
Well, Barrett provides a great overview of different investment options,
Okay.
like index funds,
Huh?
which track a specific market index,
Okay.
and actively managed funds,
Right.
where a fund manager makes investment decisions.
What's the difference? And which one is better?
Index funds are generally lower cost
Okay.
and tend to perform well over the long term.
Uh-huh.
Actively managed funds can have higher fees and don't always outperform the market.
Okay.
It really depends on your risk tolerance and investment goals.
That makes sense. Barrett also mentions the importance of diversification, right?
Yes. Diversification is about spreading your investments across different asset classes, like stocks,
Oh, okay.
bonds,
Uh-huh.
and real estate to reduce your overall risk.
So it's like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Precisely. Diversification helps protect your investments from market fluctuations.
Oh.
Barrett also highlights the convenience of regular automated investing,
Right.
which makes it easier to stay consistent and disciplined with your savings.
That sounds like a great way to build wealth
Yeah.
without having to constantly think about it. So we've talked about saving and investing,
Yeah.
but what about boosting your income?
Yeah.
Any tips from Barrett on that front?
She definitely addresses that. One of her top tips is negotiating a pay raise.
Okay.
She emphasizes the importance of being prepared, doing your research,
Right.
and focusing on your value and contributions to the company.
Negotiating can be nerve-wracking. Any advice on how to approach that conversation?
Barrett suggests gathering data on industry benchmarks and comparable salaries
Okay.
to demonstrate your worth. She also encourages framing the conversation in terms of your accomplishments
Right.
and how you've exceeded expectations.
That's great advice. It takes the emotion out of it
Yeah.
and makes it more about the facts and your performance. What if a pay raise isn't an option at your current job?
Well, Barrett also explores the world of side hustles as a way to generate extra income.
Side hustles are definitely popular these days.
They are.
What does Barrett have to say about navigating that world?
She provides a balanced perspective. She acknowledges the potential benefits,
Mm-hmm.
like pursuing your passions,
Okay.
gaining new skills, and earning extra cash.
Yeah.
But she also cautions about potential challenges. She cites experts who warn about potential conflicts of interest
Okay.
with your employer and the importance of being transparent about your side hustle activities.
That's important. You don't want to jeopardize your main source of income.
Right.
Any other tips on managing a side hustle effectively?
Barrett stresses the importance of keeping your business finances separate from your personal finances.
Okay.
She also reminds us to explore tax allowances and deductions for self-employed individuals.
That's crucial. No
No.
one wants a surprise tax bill. Now, I think this next topic is something that many of us struggle with, talking about money. It can feel so awkward.
It can definitely be a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
Barrett emphasizes the importance of open communication about money with partners,
Right.
family, and friends.
Where do you even begin to break down those communication barriers?
Barrett highlights the insights of a psychotherapist who encourages understanding your own money story and emotional baggage.
That's interesting. Can you explain that a bit more?
Our experiences with money from childhood to adulthood
Right.
shape our beliefs and behaviors around finances.
Uh-huh.
By acknowledging our own financial past
Okay.
and the feelings it evokes,
Yeah.
we can approach money conversations with more awareness and empathy.
So it's about understanding where we're coming from and how those experiences might be influencing our current financial habits and attitudes.
Exactly. And once you have that self-awareness,
Uh-huh.
it's easier to have healthier conversations with others about money.
Does Barrett offer any practical tips for navigating those sometimes difficult conversations?
She does. For example, when talking about finances with your partner, she suggests scheduling regular money dates
Okay.
in a neutral setting.
Money dates. I love that idea. What does a money date look like?
It's a dedicated time and space for open and honest conversations
Uh-huh.
about your financial goals,
Okay.
concern, and plans. It takes the pressure off
Yeah,
and creates a structured environment for discussing money matters.
that makes a lot of sense. What about conversations about money with family or friends?
Right.
Those can be tricky too.
Barrett acknowledges that these conversations can be challenging,
Uh-huh.
but she encourages approaching them with honesty and respect.
Mm-hmm.
She also reminds us that it's okay to seek professional help
Yeah.
from a financial therapist or counselor if you're struggling to communicate effectively about money.
That's good to remember. There are resources available to help us navigate those conversations. Now, I know there are specific financial conversations that can feel particularly daunting. Did Barrett address any of those in the book?
She does. She talks about the importance of discussing the financial implications of starting a family,
Okay.
which can be a major life transition.
That's such a big one. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of starting a family.
Right.
And forget about the financial reality.
Exactly. Barrett encourages couples to have honest conversations about affordability.
Childcare costs,
Yeah.
potential career changes,
Right. Yeah.
and how they'll manage their finances as a family.
Those are all important factors to consider. It's better to have those conversations up front rather than be surprised later on. Did she offer any advice on navigating those conversations?
She suggests researching childcare options early on,
Okay.
as costs can vary significantly. She also stresses the importance of factoring in not just the direct costs of childcare, but also the potential impact on your careers and earning potential.
That's a really important point that's often overlooked.
It is.
It's not just about the immediate costs, but also the long-term financial implications. Did Barrett address any other potentially challenging financial conversations?
Yes. She talks about negotiating with service providers like
Okay.
companies,
Yep.
landlords,
Right.
and utility companies.
Those can definitely be intimidating conversations. Any tips on how to approach them effectively?
Barrett emphasizes the need to be prepared and assertive. She suggests doing your research.
Knowing your rights
Right.
and having a clear understanding of your desired outcome before initiating the conversation.
So it's about being informed and confident in advocating for yourself.
Mm.
Does she offer any specific examples of how to negotiate with different types of service providers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For example, if you're facing a rent increase,
Okay.
she suggests researching average rents in your area
Right.
to determine if the increase is reasonable. She also highlights the importance of understanding your rights as a tenant
Yeah.
and utilizing resources like the shelter website for guidance.
That's great advice. It's easy to feel powerless in those situations, but knowing your rights and having the right information can make a huge difference. What about negotiating with utility companies?
Barrett suggests gathering all relevant information like
Right.
your account number
Yeah.
and recent bills
Okay.
before making the call. She also emphasizes the importance of staying calm and polite, but firm in expressing your concerns.
It's all about being prepared and knowing what you want to achieve. Any other tips on negotiating with service providers?
She reminds us that we have the right to escalate our concerns to the financial ombudsman if we feel we've been treated unfairly.
That's good to know. There are avenues for recourse if we feel like we're not being heard. It sounds like Barrett covers a wide range of financial conversations in her book. What are some key takeaways from this section on communication?
Well, communication is key.
Yeah.
Open and honest conversations about money can help build trust and reduce financial stress.
It's about being proactive and addressing financial matters head-on rather than avoiding them.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to seek support when needed. Financial therapists,
Right.
debt advisors,
Mhm.
and consumer advocacy groups
Okay.
can provide guidance and assistance. Now, did you want to touch on student loans before we wrap up?
Yes, I think that's an important topic for many listeners. How does Barrett address student loans in her book?
She does a great job of breaking down the complexities of student loans, explaining how they work,
Mm-hmm.
how interest is calculated,
Okay.
and when repayments are due. She emphasizes that student loans are different from other types of debt.
How so?
For example, repayments are based on your income,
Okay.
and there's a repayment threshold below which you don't have to pay anything.
So your monthly payments are adjusted based on how much you earn.
That's right. And after a certain period of time,
Mm-hmm.
typically 30 years,
Okay.
any remaining student loan debt is written off.
That's a significant difference from other types of debt. Does she offer any advice on managing student loans effectively?
She highlights the importance of understanding the interest rates on student loans
Mm-hmm.
and how they can affect your overall debt burden. She reminds us that even though interest may accrue,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily affect your monthly repayments,
Oh,
which
yeah.
remain a fixed percentage of your income above the repayment threshold.
That's a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that a bit further?
Of course. Basically, even though interest is being added to your loan balance,
Right.
your monthly payments are determined by your income,
Uh-huh.
not the total amount you owe.
Okay.
So even if your loan balance is increasing due to interest,
Yeah.
your monthly payments might not change.
That makes sense. So the interest charges don't affect my monthly payments,
Right.
but they could increase the total amount I owe in the long run.
Exactly. The interest charges could potentially extend the repayment period,
Okay.
especially if you're only making the minimum payments based on your income.
So it's important to be aware of the interest rates.
Yeah.
And how they can impact the overall cost of the loan. Any other advice on managing student loans?
Barrett encourages borrowers to stay informed about their loan terms and any changes to repayment policies. She also emphasizes the importance of contacting your loan provider if you're experiencing financial difficulties or have questions about your repayment options.
That's great advice. It's always better to communicate with your loan provider rather than ignoring the problem. It sounds like Barrett provides a comprehensive overview of student loans and empowers borrowers to make informed decisions.
Absolutely. She demystifies the world of student loans
Right.
and provides practical guidance for managing them effectively.
Okay, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered so far. It's been a lot of information. What are some key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, we've explored a wide range of topics,
Yeah.
from managing debt and saving for a deposit
Mm-hmm.
to investing for the future
Right.
and boosting your income. We've also delved into the importance of talking about money
Yeah.
and navigating those sometimes difficult conversations.
It's amazing how interconnected all these financial aspects are. What's the overarching message you've gleaned from Barrett's book?
I think the overarching message is that financial knowledge is power. By understanding the basics of personal finance and developing healthy money habits, we can take control of our financial well-being and create a more secure future.
It's not about being a financial expert overnight, but about taking small steps,
Yeah.
learning as we go,
Yeah,
and making informed choices.
exactly. And it's never too late to start.
Right.
Every step you take towards financial literacy is a step in the right direction. Now, are you ready to move on to the final section of our deep dive, where we'll wrap up with some concluding thoughts from Barrett's book?
Let's do it. All right. As we wrap up our deep dive into what they don't teach you about money, let's pull out some of the most valuable insights that really resonated with me from the book.
Yeah, I think there's so much packed into this book,
Yeah.
but Barrett does a great job of distilling those key takeaways into actionable advice.
One thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea of self-awareness.
Right.
Whether it's about your money personality, your spending habits, or
That's
your
true.
emotional baggage around money.
It's like she's saying, know thyself,
Uh-huh.
and then you can conquer your finances.
Exactly. Once you understand your own tendencies, you can start making more conscious choices.
Right.
Speaking of conscious choices,
Yeah,
mindful spending is another huge theme.
absolutely. And it's not about deprivation.
Right.
It's about intentionality.
I love how Barrett encourages us to track our spending and really examine where our money is going. Sometimes those little convenience purchases can really add up.
Oh, for sure. Remember the PRIT tax.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into the trap of convenience,
Right.
but it can have a significant impact on our finances over time.
It's about understanding the trade-offs we're making. Do we really need that daily takeaway latte, or can we make coffee at home a few times a week and save some money?
Exactly. Those small adjustments can make a big difference,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to building financial resilience.
Yeah.
Barrett also talks about the importance of having an emergency fund.
That's something I need to work on. Life can throw unexpected expenses our way,
Yeah,
and having that cushion can really reduce stress.
absolutely. It's about having that safety net to fall back on when things get tough.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the long-term game of investing.
I appreciate how Barrett breaks down investing in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming.
I agree.
Yeah.
She reminds us that investing doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
Starting early, even with small amounts,
Uh-huh.
and taking advantage of compound interest is key.
Then diversification.
Yeah.
Spreading your investments across different asset classes to manage risk.
Exactly. It's all about building a solid financial foundation for the future.
But perhaps one of the most powerful messages in the book, and something we've talked about a lot today, is the importance of talking about money.
Definitely. It could be a tough conversation to start,
Yeah.
but Barrett really emphasizes the power of open communication with partners, family, and friends.
Those money dates with your partner are a great idea. It's about creating a dedicated time and space
Yeah,
to discuss financial goals,
Right.
concerns, and plans.
right. And it's about remembering that you're a team. You're in it together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the one piece of advice from Barrett's book that you think listeners should take away?
I think that financial knowledge is truly empowering. By understanding the basics of personal finance and developing healthy money habits, we can take control of our financial well-being and create a more secure and fulfilling future.
It's about taking ownership of our finances and making informed choices that align with our values and goals.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Uh-huh.
There will be ups and downs.
Yeah.
But with the right knowledge and mindset, we can navigate those challenges and achieve financial success.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Claer Barrett's What They Don't Teach You About Money. It's a book packed with practical advice and inspiring insights for anyone looking to take charge of their financial lives.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those money conversations.
Did you get any of that?